Hello, Guilty Feminist. This is Deborah, and welcome to this culture episode of the podcast. This week, I was thrilled to be invited to host a Q&A following a performance of the new musical Cathy and Stella Solve a Murder at the Ambassadors Theatre in London. This incredible show was written by John Britton and Matthew Floyd Jones, and it follows two friends, Cathy and Stella, whose true crime podcast eventually leads them into terrible danger. It's sweet, funny, exciting, and the songs are truly fantastic, as are the two leads. Wow, what talent. Bronté Barbé, who plays Cathy, and Rebecca Hines, who plays Stella. Susan Wokoma and I spoke to them on stage, but first we chatted to the audience. Hello, and welcome. I'm Deborah Frances-White. This is
Susan Wokoma.
That's right. So first of all, just give us a cheer if you enjoyed the show. Give us a cheer if it's the first time you've seen it. Give us a cheer if you saw it before. Give us a cheer if you've seen it in Edinburgh. Give us a cheer if you've already seen it in the West End. Okay, so you are the mad fan.
Anyone who hasn't seen the show before, first-time viewers, who guessed who the murderer was? Oh, so that is a tight script that you guys have there.
Absolutely. Just give us a cheer if you're here with your best friend.
Yay.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, we should have cheered.
Yes.
Yay!
Susie and I often co-host the Guilty Feminist podcast together. So I think that's why we've been asked to do this.
Yes,
is because we are real life best friends. I mean, I'm sure Susie has other friends.
I'm sure you've got a few as well.
Yeah. But I think you have different best friends for different things in your life. Do you think?
No, you're my only best friend.
Okay, no, absolutely. My only literal best friend, nobody else. I once put an Instagram post up that said, out with my best wife, Susan Wokoma. It was just like a little joke.
Yeah.
So many people got upset. They were like, I thought I was your best friend. Yeah.
Oh, really? Did it cause a stir?
Really. Yeah, it did.
Am I the
They were
drama?
like, well, somebody did it on the podcast. Someone said, I'm a feminist. When I saw that, I got really jealous.
Oh, yeah, yes.
But I
Good.
think it... just give us a cheer if you have ever made a podcast. Yes.
Okay.
Give us a cheer if you've made a podcast with a best friend or with a close friend. Yeah. Yes?
Okay.
What's your podcast?
Film podcast.
It's a film podcast. What's it called?
Verging on Greatness.
Verging on Greatness. And are you indeed verging on greatness?
No, we're very, very definitely wallowing in mediocrity.
Oh.
Is that the
So
log
honest.
line? Actually wallowing in mediocrity, but verging on greatness. I'm sure that's not true. Verging on greatness. Okay, well, we'll give it a listen.
Who's your best friend? Your co-host? Sorry?
Mike
Mike
Borgfeld. Borgfeld.
This is going well.
I
I
think-
think you're doing great. This is bad, this end.
I think he's
Mike.
American.
You...
I'm Kiwi.
Oh, you're Kiwi. Oh.
No.
And is this podcast based in New Zealand?
He's there, I'm here. We do a two-hander.
Oh, you're here and he's there. And you do it like... I thought that was one of the funniest jokes.
I know, yeah, the
Oh, my
lagging.
God. The lag. Because for a second, I thought, she's Mr. Q.
And you're like,
And but it seemed so unlikely at the end of the show. And then I got the joke, and I thought it was incredibly funny.
Very good.
Did anyone else think she'd missed the cue or something had gone wrong with the music? Yes.
Okay, it's not
Thank
just-
God. Some people were shaking their heads adamantly, like, no.
Don't be silly.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody else do a podcast? Yes. What's
Ooh.
your podcast? Clown
Sorry?
sex. There's something for everyone on the internet, isn't there? Clown sex. What's the podcast about? Or is it self-explanatory?
I'm actually nominated with your podcast, for the
What category?
Women's Podcast Awards.
Oh my God.
Comedy Gold.
Do you know what? I thought I recognised the name. So we're both nominated for a Moment of Comedy Gold.
Right.
You're nominated for Clown Sex. I'm nominated for The Guilty Feminist. I don't know which clip was submitted on mine because I think one of the producers did it. But what's the clip that's
What's
nominated on
your
yours?
podcast? But can we just clarify? You've just jumped into moments.
Oh,
gosh!
hello!
Will shut up.
Huge round of applause. It's only Bronté Barbé who plays Kathy and Rebecca Hines who plays Stella.
Hello.
Big round of applause. Oh, my God. You did such an extraordinary job tonight. I can't believe you do that 8 shows
gorgeous.
a week.
Yeah, neither can we.
Oh, wow. What an extraordinary thing. You are so brilliant. And it's like sung through. So you must really need a drink. Look, there's some there.
Do have a sip. Let's not
lovely,
first
thank
sip, and we're all going to cheers. We're all going to go cheers.
Cheers,
everyone.
Cheers. Incredibly well done. You've just come in at the moment where we just heard that I don't want to
something's going on.
distract that someone just said their podcast is called Clown Sex and they're nominated in the same awards as me next week. Oh. And we just need to know, what is Clown Sex about?
It's about a guy called Gary Strange who lives in the sewers.
A guy called Gary Strange who lives in the sewers.
And one of the benefits of living in the sewers
One of the benefits of living in the sewers
is that he can hear other people's conversations through the pipes.
is that he can hear other people's conversations through the
That's
pipes.
fascinating. So Clown Sex. We will come to the play in a minute.
Why is it called? I just feel everyone will be thinking about that and not about this if we just don't.
Let's just get out of the way.
Why is it called Clown Sex?
Gary Strange has different sexual preferences.
Gary Strange has different sexual preferences.
One of the episodes is about him having sex with a clown for the first time.
And one
It's
of the
exactly
episodes,
what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, one of the episodes is about him having sex with a clown for the first time.
Got it.
Yeah, okay. So, listen, I look forward to seeing you at the awards ceremony, and I'll have listened to the whole thing before then. Everyone, check out Clown Sex. Now, in every way you can think to do so. So, Kathy and Stella solve a murder. What a brilliant musical. It's such an interesting show because it's got this gorgeous golden heart of female friendship. And was it not written by men?
Yes.
Can you believe those pesky fellas?
Yeah.
I know, right?
Do you know what?
Did you have any suspicion when you were like, oh, here's a musical? Men? Were you like, no? I mean, thank God you didn't. But because you're here.
But
Did we discuss that?
I mean,
maybe
do you know
we
what? I don't think we
did.
because I think because our amazing producer Francesca Moody was attached to it. For me, it was absolutely a goer because I know how wonderful she is and the fab work she's done. But we've had the guys have been amazing, haven't they? They've really let us have a lot of input into it.
Yeah, I feel like we
great.
came in and were like, we are women. We can
Exactly.
We'll take it from here.
But also, I think the friendship that it explores is it doesn't. In some ways, it's genderless.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's about
totally.
they've written people. I think, and the layers that we've added as actors, I think, are what we can bring as women, and the kind of the insecurities that Stella has, and the way that I could find those things within what they'd written.
Yeah.
But I do think that they'd just written a strong friendship between people, and it doesn't
Totally.
really matter whether they're women or not. But then it becomes about female friendship because it's played by women. So
Yeah.
I do think, though, the depth of that friendship. I'm not saying men don't have friendships. That would be ludicrous. That would be ludicrous. But the level at which you can sometimes bond with a woman. We should say the name of the men who wrote it because we've just called them men. Like they're just vague shapes. But it's written by John Britton and Matthew Floyd Jones, who've done an incredible job.
Yeah, they really
but
have.
I do feel it is. Yes, you're right. Of course, it's human beings, but I also think there is some essence of female friendship. I don't know. I certainly that straight men would say, if you left me, I'd die. You know, like
perhaps not.
There's something really, I think, identifiable about that friendship, especially when you're at school and those first few years. And it sort of feels like they get Arrested Development and they can't move beyond that for their own reasons. And this is the story of how they do.
Yeah, we've had a lot of time to sort of hone it. I mean, we've known each other for years. So when this came through, we'd done a couple of workshops together, and then we just done a big show together. And I remember we got 20 pages through of it, and it said, Kathy and Stella solve a murder at the Edinburgh Fringe. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm not sure about that, but let's have a read. And I could literally hear Bex's voice in it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I can't imagine doing it with anybody else other than Bex.
Yeah.
So I sent her this voice note, which we mined out actually for on press night. I sent it her like, look how far we've come. And it was like, Bex, I don't know if you've had this script through, but it's amazing. I can hear your voice in it. I know you're doing something else. And she'd then offered it as well. So it's from the very word go, it was amazing to be on board with Bex. Soppy.
Very soppy,
Single
but
cheer.
great.
I can't imagine doing it with anybody else, but they've given us so much room to explore it, and we've infused so much of ourselves in it and so much of our sort of history.
And I'm so glad we did it.
Oh, me
I
too.
was tentative at the beginning. I'm not going to lie. I was just very tired.
What was you were tired? You were tired.
I was
Very
so
busy.
tired, guys.
Busy,
Yeah.
love.
And I was just kind of like, oh, what is this? And I'm a bit exhausted. I think I won't do that. And then I got this voice note from Bronté going, oh, I've been offered, and I can hear you in the writing. Please read it. And then I was like, okay. And then we fell in love with it in the workshop.
Oh, completely.
And so it was you go in just thinking, oh, let's see what this is. And by the end of the week, we were like, I hope they're going to offer us this for the actual job. And then they did. And like, how lucky are we to have been able to be, develop this from the beginning and to be there in its infancy and all the way through to its, adulthood here, I guess.
And for anyone who is in the audience who doesn't know or who's listening at home, can you describe what a workshop consists of? Like, what is that, and how long was it, and what happened within that time?
So it was a week long with the writers in the room and just working on mostly just doing music, wasn't it? So it was just about reading it through and singing it and seeing how it would place in people's voices. And I think it's really important for writers to hear their work sung and read out loud and see how the comedy beats land and all of that. And then we we performed for the producers and some other people, I think, at the end of the week, about 20 minutes of it. We sort of sung through it.
Yeah.
Well, musicals are just so, especially new British musicals, it's such a challenge to get them anywhere it is.
Yeah.
And obviously the Fringe champions new work, and it was an amazing platform for Kathy and Stella. But before you get a theatre, it's always workshop. That's what we do. We work, you always workshop musicals. Depends how many you need, really. But we've done quite a few for this one, actually, now, haven't we, in between runs? We've come back to it, added new stuff.
Nice.
And the great thing is that it started off as an hour and 10 minutes of the Fringe, but there was so much extra stuff that wasn't put in, so much material. So when we came to make it bigger and better, it wasn't like we were fluffing it out, it was packed full of stuff that we were like, yes, let's bring it back in. So it's been an incredible process to be a part of.
How is it originating those roles where you're growing with the role? How much do you contribute? Because I can't imagine anybody else in it but you. I don't want to say that because the producers will want to imagine people all over the world
Of course, yes.
being in it and this having a much longer life. But it's just, the casting's absolutely brilliant. How much of yourself do you put into the role when you're originating it in a workshop, do you think?
It's mad, isn't it? This is sort of, we always, when we're exhausted, and we've been doing show 8 of the week, we sort of have to go, oh my goodness, can you believe it? We're here, we're doing it. It's a northern, new British musical about friendship. It's mad, that we've made. And there's a lot. I like to think that we're very different to our characters in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I do feel like...
I hope so.
I know. I do feel like we know them so deeply, though, now. That,
but you always bring a bit of you to every
course,
role, don't you, in terms of how you might tackle something or what would affect you as a person or what your sense of humour is. But when people are like, oh, it's just you, isn't it, Stella's you, I get really offended because I'm like, she's actually a bit of a...
I'm working.
She's not great.
I'm not just myself.
She's quite annoying. I was thinking, is this how people see me? But maybe that's good. It's complicated, isn't it? But I think, we've been able to inject so much of ourselves into it as well as... But it was all there, it was all there on the page as well.
Yeah.
There's just, the subtext that you can bring along to it as well. Mm.
I really enjoyed watching it with Susie because I watched it at the Edinburgh Fringe.
And it was my first term.
It was
and
your
I
first time.
absolutely loved it. I mean,
good.
what I absolutely cherish about it is I know that you said that this has been written about two people, and that's the reason why you don't have to be any specific gender to enjoy the show. Of course. But what I love is that weird kind of Venn diagram, which is a real thing of a lot of women listening to true crime.
Yeah.
That is a real
real
We
thing.
talk about this all the
thing.
time because the demographic
Constantly.
is more women.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating to me.
And I love the
Yep.
fact that you attack that because because I don't really listen to true crime because I'm scared. But but it is really interesting to sort of hear the reasons of going, well, the danger is out there. And so like if you're tackling it, or it's a way of providing comfort, or even just learning, okay, this is what I would do in this situation. I've never really thought about it like that. So in a way, even though it is about two people and their friendship, there is so much at the heart of it that is about these women who find comfort in this thing that is terrifying and that, women are largely the victims of.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, like Beck says. But also, I think Stella and Kathy also have their own reasons why they listen to it, which are also quite different. But I mean, we constantly get asked about the true crime thread, and I think it's more sort of like prevalent than ever. People listen to it so much, and also like when we've said we have to take a step back from research, like because I was listening to a lot of true crime, I was reading it, and a few weeks ago I was like walking home, nearly at my front door with my keys between my fingers thinking, this is getting ridiculous, and it's that, it's the obsessive nature with anything. So
I've taken a break from the true crime documentaries and stuff because it feels like every day I'm consuming it at work here. So I've just given myself a little, but I do love a documentary, a really dark documentary. And I can't quite pinpoint why I do. In a way, I mean, I think it's about. I'm fascinated by the psychology of a criminal mind. I think, but that is really dark and strange. I'm like, why does that sort of calm me down watching something like that?
Do you think women listen to it so much because they're trying to somehow control the danger? Because that's what
Bronté always says
definitely
in our radio interviews.
It must be. I think it's a controlling the outcome of things, being able to see the signs. I mean, I don't know. I think for me, I go, why else am I doing it? Because I've watched so much, But yeah, it
reminded me of Kiri Pritchard McLean has got a podcast with Rachel. That's about serial killers, and they always open with something where they say, we do this podcast about male serial killers so we don't end up writing to them in prison. Yeah. And there's something...
Yeah. Wow.
It's clearly a joke.
All killer, no filler, I think.
All killer, no filler. Yeah. It's a joke, but there is something also about women writing to serial killers in prison and marrying serial killers in prison. And again, I think it might be something to do with there's always this fear that you could be hurt or you could be killed. So somehow control it, bring it into your orbit. Know the enemy. And somehow
like
become
that on the side.
Something like that. But interesting to bring the female friendship into that this is the kind of joint obsession. Are there any iconic best friendships that you've looked at making this, or any iconic best friend double acts that you've enjoyed?
Really good question.
But I don't think
we haven't been
did.
that's it, have we?
That's interesting, though. Maybe we should have done. Oops.
I'm slightly obsessed with watching. I've seen clips of Judy Garland and Barbara Streisand singing together.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and that Judy Garland saw Barbara Streisand as the next her, and then they became friends.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit obsessed with that. Also, Alan Cumming and Liza Minnelli for a similar reason.
Yeah.
Obviously, Judy Garland.
I wish that's what we could have said. We go, Alan Cumming and Liza Minnelli. That was what we're based on.
But I wonder what those friendships are like, because I wonder if in real life are they hanging out all the time, or if that's just something where you see them on screen. Because sometimes I see people on Instagram together, I think they're obviously best friends. And then I just think, but I get photographed next to people all the time and I'm not their best friend.
Exactly. Best friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, what is the nature of that? Yeah. Did you draw on anything from your real life friendships? It sounds like you're really good friends and that you actually texted each other at the beginning of this.
Yeah, it was so nice to have that shorthand to the chemistry that we had on stage, I think, because we'd worked together before, and it felt quicker to get there, I think, with some of what they're like. But
totally, I love that. Yeah, there's so much from my friendships that I've sort of tried to bring into it, because I love that they're so messy and real, and it's like painful. And, you know, sort of when they argue, it's like that physical feeling. There's like nothing else arguing with your female friends. Like, I haven't done it. I was a person who sort of avoided conflict at all at all times. But doing it is so painful. It's like nothing else, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I've definitely drawn on female friendships. We've actually got a corkboard at the back of the stage with people who are sort of like in our lives that we could put pictures on. We pretend they're suspects, so that's what it is. But my two best mates from high school are sort of like plugged right on the middle there. Sometimes I make eye contact with them and think, oh, they're back in the play. But yeah, definitely. I mean, there's nothing like it. We always say that more than anything, our favourite, well, I mean, I'm not speaking for Bex, but favourite thing about the show is that it champions, you know, that the love of your life can be your friend.
Yeah. Oh, no, I completely agree with that.
That was my favourite aspect.
I love that about the piece so much, because probably every musical that I've been in, there's been a romantic thread, right?
Yeah.
And this is not that at all. Well, there is, but it's just different, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And it's made clear that the other alternative friend in this is early on says, yes, I'll go for a drink, but I'm gay.
Yeah.
And sort of puts out that this is not going to be a romance.
Yeah,
between the
absolutely.
two of you.
Slam, not romance, yeah.
Yeah. I thought watching it with Susie, I was going to be feeling like, oh, we're Kathy and Stella. But like about 5 minutes in, I turned to Susie and went, oh my God, I think I'm feminism's answer to Felicia Taylor.
Hey.
that is no bad thing, I think.
Yeah. And if you're listening at home and you haven't watched this show, Felicia Taylor is this absolutely appalling true crime expert. Well, she's written books on true crime.
Yeah.
And she's comes out in sunglasses and is sort of just saying, aren't you lucky to be here with me? That is not how that's not how I feel, by the way. But it just made me go, oh God, she's doing a book signing, and I thought, oh fuck, I'm not Kathy or Stella at all.
She has a bob.
Oh, she has a bob. She has a bob. She's a white woman with a bob doing a book signing, and I was just like, no,
you couldn't be more different. But you both have books, yeah.
Yeah. There's a little bit of Felicia Taylor in me. Hopefully not too much. But also, I loved that relationship as well that you had with this. Like, you know, you're looking up to her as this icon of what you could be, but then really quickly, unfortunately, fortunately for the story, but unfortunately for her, she comes to a gruesome end.
Yeah. I mean, we've really put her on a pedestal, haven't we? But I think it's interesting as well to sort of see her through both Kathy and Stella's eyes, you know, the way, like, I think Kathy's much more realistic about the way their meeting is going to go with her, and Stella definitely has higher expectations.
Yeah, it's this whole never meet your heroes thread going on there, isn't it? And then I guess when she comes, because she's dead, and then when the bits where she comes back as a ghost or whatever, or like an apparition in our brains, it's like it's like Kathy and Stella's version of her. Like,
totally.
It's quite fascinating because it's not really her.
Who she is.
It's just sort of who she was to us in our heads, and how we've put her on a pedestal all our lives because of this book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, she's our thread, isn't she, that links us together?
Yeah.
She's the one, you know, it's the book that drew us together at the beginning. So, it's obviously gutting.
There's a moment when you're both in the police station after she's been murdered, and you both say that you just both can't believe it, but you're like not entirely surprised that we've ended up. And it's kind of like that thing of like, if you keep thinking something, that you do sort of will it into existence. So if you're thinking about murder and you know, cases and stuff, and then you end up being in the middle of one, you're like, I had a feeling I might invite this into my life, inviting the chaos. And I was thinking about there's this notion in stories that you have. I think it's like with the Muppets. I think that you'll have like a chaos Muppet and an order Muppet. And what I absolutely loved is that you do sort of have those like that. Your Kathy is definitely the order Muppet and Stella's the chaos Muppet. Yeah. But you can see they both have their complexity and messiness, because it's so easy to do that with female characters, like, oh, I'm the prim one, and then I'm the messy one. And yet it's so beautifully and realistically created the characters that you truly believe in their friendship, and it isn't just those stock, those
That's
really
a really good
non-stock
point,
female characters.
Susie. They're not. It's not like I'm the hot mess. It's like they're both messy, and they've both got a drive and ambition, and they've both got order, and they've both got mess, which is much more like real people. As opposed to rom-coms where women, she's just constantly falling over like she's got an inner ear complaint.
No, I love how layered they are.
Yeah,
and I
too.
think within, like, stylistically, it is still quite heightened.
Yeah.
But I think then it dips back down to something very truthful at certain points, and that's really fun to play because it just kind of, the style shifts around a little bit, and I think that's what makes it very unique as a piece.
Grounded. Now, we don't have long left to go, so if anyone in the audience has a question, now would be the time to shout it out. Anyone got a question? Just wave if you've got a question.
Be brave, be bold.
If you don't have a question, yes, one in the front row here.
Just as the American listening to the northern accents, was this originally set in Hull from the writers, or did you guys adopt that, or was like there a real need for it to be set there?
So the question was this originally set in Hull, or was this, were you cast and then they were like...
No, it was originally set in Hull. I think
From the
Matthew
word
and
go,
John had lived in Hull at one point.
Yes, to work on
and they
something
wanted
else.
to do a sort of love letter to Hull in some ways. We are both northern and very proud to be so, but are not actually from Hull. So it's been amazing to delve into the specifics of that accent, especially when you're singing and you're rhyming vowels and all of that.
Very
It's just,
satisfying,
it's kind of gorgeous to do
Yeah.
because it's so specific and great.
Yeah, and one of our castmates, Chelsea, she's from Hull, and she's been very diligent with us, hasn't she? She's been
Yeah,
like,
she's-
that's the wrong vowel, So
fantastic.
it's been great to work on,
And there was one more. Yes, what's yours?
Watching it was hard for me personally not to apply my own sort of neuro-spicy lens on the characters, and I'm curious if neurodivergence was an intentional and or found along the way thing.
Okay, so just to repeat that for the podcast, everything's a podcast all of the time. So, our audience member saying, is it neurospicy is a new word that's coming up
It's
all
the
the
term,
time
I
now,
love
but
it.
it's but it's
Neurodivergence an intentional and or unintentional.
was there neurodivergence on the top line of this or bottom line of this? Have you discussed it?
I think that's such a good question, but
Fantastic
actually,
question.
it's not something that I can see why that's something that you'd think about, but it's
Totally.
not something that we've discussed necessarily.
Because you're saying because of the fandom and the kind of a slightly obsessive nature of their
But I do think,
pursuits.
they definitely both have, in different ways, a kind of obsessive thoughts about things. I don't know, like Kathy's struggle with anxiety and order, but then Stella's insecurity and kind of, there's a lot to unpack there with that kind of thing. And I think there is probably, a spectrum is a spectrum. We're all on it. That's what a spectrum is. But I'd like where people are on the spectrum is a question that we haven't actually delved into, but I would say that they are on it.
Well, I think for Kathy as well, especially with her experience at university and what she had to deal with. This is a very personal thing, but my sibling went through a sort of semi-similar experience at one point in her life, and so we wanted it to be as authentic as possible, really. So I've definitely spoken to a lot of people who have had that kind of experience at university, and obviously the overwhelm and everything that goes with that. And we didn't want, them to seem reductive in any way. So there's definitely been a thought path on that for me along the way.
So if you are listening and you haven't seen it yet, you will probably see yourself in this in some way, whether or not it's spelt out for you.
Yeah.
There's lots to see yourself in. If you ever feel anxious, if you ever get stuck on something, you find your excitement in something shared with a friend, you are experiencing neurospiciness, you will, I'm sure, see yourself on the stage in this absolutely brilliant production. Thank you so much. A big round of applause for Bronté and Bex.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And to my co-pilot here, Susan Wokoma.
Thank you.
I've been Deborah Francis-White. Please go out and tell everybody about Kathy and Stella Solve a Murder. Send all your friends. Just tell people in the street if necessary. Maybe do a little post about it. Because we want this to run in the West End, because it's really wonderful and it's just really lovely to see a show that was just started at the Fringe make it to the West End. It's really rare that this happens.
New musicals are so hard to get on stage. So this is a huge, massive achievement. So please come and support the show.
Come and support the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening, and I really can't recommend this show enough. It's running in London until the end of September. For more information and to book, go to kathyandstella.com. That's Kathy with a K, A-N-D, Stella.com. See you soon for another episode of The Guilty Feminist. We're back at King's Place live on the 15th of July with our Edinburgh Preview special, where you can see some exclusive highlights of shows going to the Edinburgh Fringe. So whether you're going to the Fringe and you want a taster, so you know what you want to see in full, or you can't make it this year and you want the potted version live, come along 15th of July in London and see that show. And we'll be at the Edinburgh Festival live ourselves on the 12th, 13th and 14th of August. So if that correlates with your visit, please book now at the Gilded Balloon. For more information and to book, go to guiltyfeminist.com and click on live shows. Are you working? You are, but it won't. Oh, there we are. Yes.
Doesn't matter. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I'll do that until it's ready.
Because we're recording this for the Guilty Feminist podcast as well. So while you have a wonderful trained voice, it's not going to be good enough for the podcast unless it's recording. Tom, is that recording for the podcast? No, we're doing a switch out. Okay, so I'll do a bit of busking. This part doesn't matter if it's on the podcast. So first of all, just give us a cheer. The Guilty Feminist is provided exclusively from Acast. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.